Things are about to get crazy in the American Conference. Welcome in to Studio A. It's another edition of All American with Maria Trivelpiece. I'm Kyle Youmans. So glad you're with us. And things just continue to get crazier. We thought we would get a little bit of clarity. We thought there would be a little bit of an awakening, per se, from the American Conference across the board. Not the case. We still have 4 one-loss teams, and things are about to get unreal over the last couple weeks of the season.
The American Conference's hashtag is always built to rise. That should be the hashtag, but I want to add another one of hashtag chaos because that's all that has happened.
I love it.
Since the last few weeks of the season. I mean, pretty much the entire season, but it just keeps building and building to rising the chaos, I guess. More
and more chaos across the board. I'm all for the chaos. We've established this. We talked about it in week 1. I want chaos, and we've had chaos throughout the time. You got big wins from teams like Navy, North Texas, East Carolina taking down Memphis. Tulane takes care of business. South Florida, the only team to fall from the ranks of the one-loss teams. And now, with 2 weeks left to play in conference action, Navy's the team that leads the way. They've got one more hurdle between them and a possible berth in the American title game. Then you've got North Texas and Tulane that are both now inside the AP top 25. Congratulations to the North Texas Mean Green, ranked number 22 in the AP top 25 for the first time since 1959. Tulane on the other side, they're inside. They're at 24. We'll see, of course, what the college football playoff has in store. But there's a lot of rankings still left to be done, and these standings have just continued to get muddied at the top.
Well, I think that we knew somebody would fall out of the one-loss group, and I believed in Navy, but I was really surprised that South Florida has fallen. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but man, the Midshipmen looked good in that game. And so I've given up trying to predict what's going to happen. We'll talk next week, Kyle, about where we are because I'm not even trying to guess anymore. It's complete chaos, and something weird's going to happen this week that we definitely didn't have on our bingo card. And we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about it again next week. And so I'm done trying to guess, but we're going to cover what already happened.
See, and that's ultimately my thought process is we can break it down as much as we possibly can. We can continuously look at this schedule, look at the standings and say, oh, this team could place here, or this team could place there, or this and that and the other. Not the case because something unforeseen is going to happen, and we just don't know what it is yet. It could be North Texas, could be ECU, could be Tulane, who knows? Whatever happens in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be here one way or the other, and we're going to break it down. Let's start with Navy. By the way, for those that are listening and they're thinking maybe my energy level's a little bit different, I'm dealing with a little bit of a sinus infection. Appreciate you sticking with me. I'm going to be a little more subdued today, but it does not change the energy that I'm bringing to the table. It's just the voice is a little bit rusty at the moment. All right, let's get into that Navy and South Florida matchup. Olay, says the goats getting it done. The Midshipmen with the Toro.
I just love our conference's social media teams. We've talked about South Florida's a lot, right? They've done so many good things, but how about Navy here? First of all, whoever designed the graphic.
Beautiful.
10 out of 10. We love it. Just fantastic. Let's start there. You know who else was fantastic?
Who's that?
The Navy offense.
Yes, they were.
We got to talk about that. I mean, it was an entire team win, but I think what really changed the game, in my opinion, was the way that they just kept pounding and wearing down South Florida. And that's what Navy offense does when they're playing really well. And you saw that come into play on Saturday.
No doubt about it. They jumped out early, had the big plays early in the game. This one, Alex Teska helped set the tone initially. And they played their best complete football across the board. I thought Alex Teska, yes, he made the big play, and he is the playmaker that's going to get a lot of the credit for it. But I thought the offensive line was fantastic for Navy throughout this game against a really good front seven from South Florida. We've talked about the Bulls front seven all year long and what they bring. Navy just controlled the line of scrimmage consistently. And Navy nearly gave South Florida a little bit of life with that early fumble after they went up after a couple of scores. They fumbled, but then the defense does their job. So it was a complete win for Navy across the board. I think the way that your playmakers stepped up, Chapman, Horvath, Heidenreich, Teska, Woodson, the whole defense as a whole, they needed every single one of those Navy midshipmen to win this football game. And there were crucial moments in this game where they were punched in the mouth. This big Brown touchdown was one of them from Byron Brown. But even when they were punched in the mouth, they didn't let up, and they continued the onslaught, and it ultimately ended up in a win.
I think two things that I loved in this game were, one, as we already talked about, the way that the offense kind of wore South Florida down as the game went on, but also the defense to hold on. I mean, they still gave up points, right? But I think one thing that PJ Volker talked about earlier in the year was just how young this defense was, right? And they need to get more reps underneath them. They need to get more games underneath them as the season went on. I think in games past, when they get down a certain amount, then they kind of just not give up, because it's a Navy team and they'll never give up, but they don't fight back as hard. And I think in this game they did, and that's something that I think made the difference ultimately at the end.
I think one of the biggest moments in this game was right around the end of the second quarter. 7.5 minutes to play in the second quarter. You had the Teska touchdown, his second of the day. And then you had Philip Hamilton with that interception after Brown was pressured. He had to throw kind of off his back foot and kind of threw a duck in the air. Hamilton underneath it had a nice return afterwards. And then Navy killed a lot of that clock, that final 7 minutes. I guess it was right around 6:40 when the interception happened. But they killed a lot of that clock, ended up with a field goal. They were up 24-9 at the halftime break. 15 points against South Florida, as you saw in this game, was not going to be enough to win it. But that ultimately ended up being the difference, the turnover and then the field goal prior to halftime. All of that to say, South Florida, I thought they did a lot of things well in this game. I thought they fought back. They went deep into the playbook. You saw the wide receiver pass that ended up in a touchdown. Byron Brown still played incredibly. I thought the South Florida offensive line played pretty decent across the board. But this was one of those games where Navy needed to play perfect football, and they did. They played their brand of football, executed their game plan, and they continued the onslaught. No matter what happened to Blake Horvath midway through the game, which honestly, congrats to the entire team for rallying around what Woodson brought to the table at the quarterback position. He stepped up in a huge way, and the guys stepped up around him. This was as much of a team win as any team in the American Conference this year has experienced. And it was one that I think Navy as a program needs to be very proud about, and I think they are. I think they are proud about it.
Absolutely. You take a look at there of just all the people that contributed, especially offensively, and I think Woodson was the one that really stood out to me as well, because you know, we talk so much about Blake Horvath. He's an incredible football player. He's just a one-of-a-kind quarterback. He's a Navy quarterback that runs the ball, but he can also throw. So something that we haven't really seen in recent history, right? So Woodson being able to come in and fill in when he goes down, I think is really awesome to see if you're a Midshipmen fan. And I think also what Navy has in front of them sets them up in a good position, right? Because they have the bye week. So all those guys who maybe are banged up, maybe somebody like a Blake Horvath, they have that week now to rest and get healthy, to prepare for a tough Memphis team who's just trying to play spoiler at this point. They also then have the Army-Navy game, but they're trying to make that American Conference Championship game, which they need to beat Memphis, and then they need some help from some other places.
I love the fact that they even have the shot at being in the college football playoff. I just think that's so cool. How fun would it be to see an Armed Forces program make it into the field of 12? That would be such a showcase and such an admiration across the board for what Navy has done this season. They've been forgotten about all year.
Yep.
And we've talked about them plenty on this show, so it's not from us on our side of the media.
Please don't say we've forgotten them.
Yeah, we've been fans of Navy since this show started last year, but when they've been forgotten by the entire media across the board, they needed a win like this.
Yes.
They needed a statement dub, because up to this point, their better wins were in the early parts of conference play, where you didn't really know who they were or who they were playing against, and you kind of needed a statement win after they started this gauntlet of a schedule at the back half of their campaign with back-to-back losses, one against North Texas and then, of course, against Notre Dame last week. Now the country knows Navy is still for real, because they take down a top 25 team in South Florida. They disrupt all of the college football playoff hopes for the Bulls up to this point. And Navy still has a shot of it their own. They need a little bit of help in front of them. Teams like North Texas and Tulane need to lose, because North Texas holds the tiebreaker over Navy, and the analytics favor Tulane over Navy at the moment. But there is still a lot in front of the Midshipmen. And I think if that chaos happens, like we talked about in the American Conference, don't forget about them. We just learned that lesson. Don't forget about them. Keep an eye on Navy, and they continue to do great things there out in Annapolis. Great environment, too, for that game, too. It was awesome.
I love Annapolis. It's a beautiful place.
Fantastic city. All right, speaking of great city, how about Tulane in the City Edition jerseys that they had on display with the street tiles on full force? Oh, these were so nice.
Two things about Tulane. One is they are never going to disappoint with an alternate uniform. Two, their creative team is never going to disappoint in the reveal videos of the uniforms because they do such a good job. Look at the uniforms and the videos, the combination. Oh my goodness.
This is my favorite part of it is the names on the back of the jerseys.
Yeah. Being
in the street tiles that of course are world renowned on the streets of New Orleans and down in the French Quarter. And I like the little beads that are just in the background as well. There's so much detail in this jersey, which aligns with Coach Summerall and the Tulane detail that they put on the table in the football game as well. We've talked about Tulane squeaking by, just managing to win games, finding a way late to win some of these games. Well, now they're starting to play their best football over the last 2 weeks with the win last week against Memphis and then this win against Florida Atlantic, 35-24. They've played their best football over the last 2 weeks, and they're peaking at the right time.
And that's something that John Summerall seems to have mastered. We saw it last year with his football team, the way that they get better as the season goes on and start to figure things out exactly when they needed to. Here's the thing. They did squeak by earlier in the year, but they were still taking care of business and winning most of the games that they were supposed to. The UTSA loss was the one that they should have won that they didn't. But now they could squeak by and not pay attention to some of the little details. Now those little details are coming into play. They're playing better. It's starting to click. Retzloff maybe has a lot more games under his belt that he understands the offense in, and I think it's a scary team to be facing at this point in the year.
Absolutely. And we talked a little bit about Retzloff and how he showed up late in training camp and how he had to learn the playbook late. We mentioned that in some of the early shows. It seems like we've just kind of like written that off at different times in the season. When they played Ole Miss and they lost, they played UTSA and they lost. That's going to play a factor, but now you're starting to see how comfortable he can be on the offensive side. I mean, Florida Atlantic was moving the ball early, but this defense allowed for early possessions for Jake Retzloff and the Tulane offense to click. I really like what they did from a ground game aspect. They continuously ran the football. They established the run. I thought Retzloff was fantastic across the board too. But this was a game that, in my opinion, was won by the defense and some of those early takeaways that they had and the pressure that they put on Caden Veldkamp early in that football game.
Well, that's one thing that you always have to worry about when you're playing Florida Atlantic is that offense, is Caden Veldkamp. And Tulane just took care of that early, as you said. The Owls weren't able to take care of the football because of the pressure that the defense applied. And I think it kind of took the wind out of Florida Atlantic's momentum because they were then playing in a deficit, and it's really hard to be as aggressive and take those chances that Zach Kitley and his staff want to take when you're down. And so I think that Florida Atlantic did a good job at first, but because Tulane was able to be so tough defensively, Florida Atlantic was not able to rebound.
Yeah, bringing pressure, disrupting the timing from Veldkamp. There were still some good drives from FAU. They were able to move the ball down the field a little bit, but by that time they had either turned it over or by that time Jake Retzloff had already woken up on the offensive side of the football, and he ended up having 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing score himself. So I want to give credit to FAU because of the way that they played in Florida Atlantic. I thought fought really hard on both sides. The offense still looked dangerous at times. Defense allowed too many big plays and big plays early, big drives late. It was the 30, 40-yard plays down the field early in the game, like the 30-yarder to Bohannon early, the 26-yard run for Jamari McClure early, who ended up with 94 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries. Those big plays early really were hurting Florida Atlantic. But then it was the big drives late in the game that ended up being the real bugaboo for the Owls. One thing that really impressed me with this, and we've talked about balance for multiple teams in the American Conference this year, one of the things that really impressed me the most about what Tulane did is they had 3 different receivers with at least 50 yards receiving. They had Bryce Bohannon, who I mentioned, Anthony Brown-Stevens, and then Johnny Pascuzzi. All three of them had 50 yards through the air, and of course, one of those three had touchdowns. Bohannon had the touchdown, and then the other touchdown went to Anthony Miller. But then you go on the ground, you had the 94 yards and a touchdown from McClure. So it wasn't just one product. We talk a lot about Jake Retzlaff and what he does to spread the football around. That's what they did best in this football game.
And I think that's ultimately why they won, and now they're heading into this spot of the season where they have a really good route to the American Conference Championship game. It's all right in front of them. If they can win out, they give themselves the best chance to be in that game and possibly host that game. Here's the thing, though. They do have Temple, and they do have Charlotte. Temple's coming off the bye, and I think that Tulane needs to at least be prepared for the Owls. The Owls need one win to get to a bowl game, and they're going to try to do everything they can to not only get to a bowl game, but maybe disrupt some seasons as well.
No doubt, because they've got a chance to play the ultimate spoiler in the final 2 weeks.
Yep.
Because they're trying to get to a bowl game. They've been stuck at that fifth win for a couple weeks now. But Temple, coming off a bye, has their target set on Tulane first and then North Texas next. And we'll talk about North Texas very shortly. So Tulane cannot sleepwalk into this game. And what have we just talked about? How do they benefit early in that game against Florida Atlantic? Turnovers. You're probably not going to see those takeaways against Temple. Again, Temple does not turn the football over. We've tried to tell everybody throughout the year. Evan Simon takes exceptionally good care of the football. So don't expect Tulane to have those takeaways. And if they do, then that's a bonus. Good for you, Green Wave, on making it happen. So you got to be stout on offense initially. Do not waste those early possessions. You're not going to have time, Jake Retzlaff and the Tulane Green Wave offense, to kind of wake up and kind of gradually get better as the game goes on. You got to start fast. You got to be able to get onto it quick, because I think Temple matches up well in this game coming off of the bye week. They have some high-end talent. They don't have the depth that Tulane brings to the table, but if their best players, like a Simon, like their tight ends, like their wide receivers, if they play their best brand of football, I'm not counting the Owls out this week at any stretch of the imagination, especially when they have an extra week under Casey Keeler to game plan and to watch and to learn from learn from Tulane, who just came off of that boat race of a game against Florida Atlantic.
And I think the thing, too, is one thing we've noticed this entire season about Casey Keeler is he knows how to lead and turn things around. So I think a bye week is exactly what you want if you're a Temple Owls fan, because you know that maybe he was as animated as he was in that one halftime interview we had this past week. But interesting to see what happens in that game. I think it's going to be a good matchup, and I'm excited to watch it.
Oh, absolutely. It should be a whole lot of fun to watch. You know what else has been fun to watch?
The North Texas Mean Green.
The North Texas Mean Green and their high-flying Eagle offense. Number 22 in the AP poll. The streak is over. It's done. Somebody popped the champagne. Somebody release the confetti that's green and white. Somebody talk to somebody about the number 22 team in the AP Top 25 poll. First time since before your dad was born, since before your mom was born, before anything remotely fun happened in the world. 1959. It's incredible. They were North Texas State at that point.
Really?
I think so. It was either that or North Texas Teachers College. I mean, it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. Neither of us were alive.
No.
Neither of us were a thought, and we just need to give credit to North Texas for what they've been able to do this year. This offense, and the thing is, we talked about the offense. We should. But the defense stepping up this season, I think, has been that key factor that has helped the Mean Green, because they've always had good offenses. Now they have that defense to complement it, and it's just been a lot of fun to watch.
Well, you don't have to look very far to see exactly why you're saying that's the case than just the first couple drives in a pure domination over UAB. It finished as 53-24, but this game was over midway through the second quarter. These are just the first drives of the game, might I remind you. I'm just going to start reading these off. First drive, 14 plays, touchdown, North Texas. Then it was an interception on UAB's drive. Then it turns into a 6-play North Texas touchdown drive. Then it's a fumble recovered by North Texas. North Texas goes 4 plays with the touchdown. Then they go to turnover on downs. UAB gives it right back, and it only takes North Texas 2 plays to go down and score. So they went on touchdown drives of 14, 6, 4, and 2. It only got easier as it went along because the defense was gassed. UAB had nothing left in the tank, and it was midway through the second quarter because of the levels that North Texas attacks you with. And then when you turn the football over against this team, it's curtains. There's nothing else you can do about it. North Texas did what good teams do, and they put this game away early before there's even a sniff of an upset bid on the same field where UAB has defeated a top 25 team this year. UNT says, no, we don't want any part of that. We're going to put up score after score after score, and our defense is going to get the football back for our offense. That is a marriage that can win you a lot of football games in this league, in any league, across the board. If you can turn it over and put points on the board, check that box.
Well, ever since North Texas lost to South Florida, it just looks like an entirely different level of football that they're playing. Like before that South Florida loss, we talked about it. That was one of our biggest matchups of the year because we thought how good North Texas was. And then they fall to South Florida. And instead of crumbling and falling away, they just revamped it. I don't know what Eric Morris said in the locker room to them that maybe fired them up, but it has completely changed. And I think, not completely changed, but they've just elevated, I think is the proper word.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know that they could get to that higher level. And I think a big reason why is because of what you just said, but it's also because of people like Drew Mestemaker. And I need to read your notes where it says Caleb Hawkins, y'all. I'm not from Texas. I say you guys, but Caleb Hawkins, y'all is exactly, I think, a big reason why North Texas has been so good. And I'll let you
think so?
Talk about it a little
bit. You think
bit.
189 yards and 5 touchdowns would be good? This guy would score like 47 fantasy points if he was on a fantasy league. And this is not somebody that like is scoring 5 touchdowns in goal line packages. This is a bell cow back that just put up 5 touchdowns to go with nearly 200 yards rushing. 4 of Hawkins' 5 touchdowns on Sunday came in the first half as North Texas went up 28-0. And then he becomes the only player in the FBS this season to have 4 games with 3 or more touchdowns. This is just normal stuff for Caleb Hawkins. He's a freshman. This is his first year in college, and he's not worried about making it to class on time. He's not worried about sleeping through film study. He's worried about not running out of gas in the middle of the first quarter because he put up 5 touchdowns against UAB. I mean, come on now. He was the offensive player of the week in the conference for a reason. That's why I put Caleb Hawkins, y'all, because I don't have many other words other than like a trailing off y'all. This guy is the real deal.
I would go with a bruh. I think that might be it.
That's the northern way to do it.
Yeah, that's my northern way to do it. But I don't even have anything else to add to that because it's exactly that. You just end the sentence, you look at the numbers, and you're like, oh, Caleb Hawkins equals very good at football.
Very good. And they're good across the board. Now, they have a matchup with Rice this week where, of course, they're at 9-1. They could get to 10-1, which double-digit win seasons in North Texas football history just don't happen a whole lot. So this is a huge step for them to get over that hump and get to 10 wins. But it's also going to be an interesting matchup because it's, again, that spread option system where they've got a chance to kind of be upended a little bit in a different way than what they've seen before. Now, they have already seen the option from Navy once. They went to overtime against Army in the option earlier, a different style of option, but still a triple option sort of look. So they had one good showing against it and one mediocre showing against it. Both ended up in wins, but you can't allow for Rice to have any type of life early in this game because they are also coming off of a bye week. And remember, we've seen some big upsets this season in the American Conference. You cannot sleep on anybody, and Rice is primed to try and make something happen behind Scott Abel.
Well, we've talked so highly of Scott Abel and the Rice Owls because of what he's been able to do, especially with that option. And again, they're learning it with every week. I think the one thing that bodes well for North Texas, though, is you talk about those 2 games against option offenses, right? One happened pre-South Florida and
Yeah.
one happened post-South Florida. And it just goes to my point of something changed when they lost that football game for the better for the Mean Green. And I don't know exactly what it is, but, we talk so much about X's and O's. I think the X's and O's part of it is really similar. I think it's a different shift in what this team wants to accomplish and how they're going to accomplish it. And I think that it favors North Texas in this game because of that. They handled a Navy offense that just rolled over a South Florida defense that we have talked about ad nauseum on this show. And so I think that if they can keep getting better, it puts them in a good position. It doesn't mean that Rice coming off the bye can't beat them, because we've seen stuff like this happen before. The American is chaos, but that's the point that I'll leave you with that game.
Yeah, I think with North Texas too, they truly do believe within the building, just having conversations with those around the building, they believe they're 6 to 8 minutes away from being undefeated. They felt like they did not play their best brand of football in a 6 to 8 minute region of that South Florida loss at home on national television Friday night at DACU Stadium in front of a sold-out blackout crowd. That's the game that's sticking in everybody's mind right now when it comes to North Texas, but it's been handled in the perfect way following that. They haven't let that have any sort of residual emotion or impact after the fact. You've seen it so many times. Teams lose multiple games in a row. South Florida's dealing with it right now, where they lose one game and they're unable to kind of keep their minds in the right spot. North Texas has kept their minds in the right spot. They've gotten better as the season has gone on, and that's why if they do make it to the American Conference title game, if they do win that game and make it to a college football playoff, I don't think you can count them out in any game because of how high-powered their offense is and how much their defense can force takeaways. All of those things bode well for a team that is playing their best brand of football. They aren't the only ones, though, in the American Conference. I'm going to stop
you before we go to East Carolina. Did you do your miles?
I did do my miles. I did, yes.
Okay.
I'm glad you did check in on that because there's a lot of miles that I had to run for that one. 5.3 miles. That one is on the board. Go ahead and throw up the photo there, Zach. Let's make it happen. There you go. There you see me throwing up the that's pretty much what I was doing after the fact. I was just throwing up. But I am just drenched in sweat. It was a tough one. I ran it in my neighborhood, so of course everybody's looking out their window just judging me as
I would judge you.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably would. But there you go, 5.3 miles. I'm glad you reminded me. I almost forgot about it.
I know.
I had the perfect transition to East Carolina. I was like, oh, one team's playing their best football.
I'm sorry.
Another team playing their best football, but I'm glad you stopped me.
Yeah, so now we can talk about the best football and this tweet because this might be one of my favorite tweets of the year. And that is saying a lot because we already talked about how good American Conference social media has been. This is a letter to FedEx because of Memphis's ties to FedEx that East Carolina sent after they beat the Tigers.
How about this? Your package not found. Sorry for that. It was against the Pirates, who of course go, what is it, pillaging? Pirates pillage,
right?
Is that what it is? I think so.
Yeah.
They pillage,
Plunder.
they plunder. That's the other word I was looking
Plunder.
for. I like it. I think there are a lot of different ways that they've taken that package and they just made it happen on their senior day. How fun was this game from the jump? I had so much fun. I knew going into this game who won, what the score was, what the result was, and I still found myself watching it like a fan, Maria.
Yeah.
I went back and forth. I was like, oh my gosh, this game has so many twists and turns. Who's going to end up on top? Even though I knew East Carolina when I went back to watch it and dissect the film, that it was still going to be East Carolina, but it was that type of game.
Yep. Yeah, I was very lucky because I had 2 games on Saturday. I started with a football game at noon, and then I had men's soccer later in the evening.
Because you're big time.
Sure. But my point is I had time to watch this game, and I was so excited about it. It came on, and I was like glued to my computer while at the soccer stadium getting ready for the American Conference Championship game. But it was so exciting. It was gritty is a word that the American loves to use, right? The grit in this game and the excitement, it did not disappoint. And we kind of knew it was going to be like that.
Yeah, I think going into it, you look at the stats across the board, the Pirates of East Carolina went into it 3 consecutive double-digit wins. They were averaging 45 points per game, 530 yards per game without really challenging what they were going to do. They kind of blew out those teams over those last 3 games. They almost kept that same mentality against Memphis. Now, Memphis had a little bit of the counterpunch ability, and we saw that with the Sutton Smith touchdown. And I thought Brendan Lewis still played a really good brand of football across the board. But the mistakes happened late for Memphis, and those mistakes were what ECU needed to take over. I love that celebration, by the way, that's happening there after the game sealer. Look at just the craziness in Greenville.
Look at all the people there too. I think that the crowd in Greenville was awesome.
Almost 40,000.
It was incredible.
Packed in purple. Oh yeah, there you go. There's the storm. It was a late storm, but it was a storm. I loved watching this game because it was a back and a forth. I thought even in the second quarter when Smith scored the big touchdown run, I thought Memphis was back to doing what they do best, and that was really kind of win the ground game and to explode on the big plays. But then you had the incredible catch in the third quarter by Brock Spalding, who was fantastic in this game outside of that catch. But he was the wake-up call I feel like the Pirates needed. Then it turned into a foot race between two good offenses, back and forth. Memphis played better than I thought they did last week. Their offensive line was solid. East Carolina made the plays that they needed to make late in order to win that football game. If they didn't make every single one of their plays down the stretch, the catch there at the end, because Peyton Mangum did not have a catch all day. And then he had one catch in the first down on the final drive to kind of stop the clock. He was in the middle of the field. They reset. They get up to the line, and then they complete the deep one to Anthony Smith. And then he has the incredible catch on the game winner.
Yeah.
If they don't make every one of these plays, I don't know if East Carolina wins that game. I really don't. But they made the clutch plays when they needed to, and the Pirates remain just one loss in the American Conference.
Well, I think we've talked so much about teams getting better as the year goes on. This is that team for me, especially offensively.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, we talked about their defense as well, but, like, Caton Hauser is just doing such a better job of taking care of the football, and he's making those big, explosive plays. And, you know, something that really stood out to me, because I've been able to be on the sidelines for both North Texas and East Carolina, and they're different offenses, right? But the way that they play so quickly and the way that they can have such explosive plays seem really similar to me. Again, different, but there's just some of the similarities, and I think that East Carolina is clicking the later and longer the season goes on, and they're making all of the very clutch plays and paying attention to those small details. They're not making the minor mistakes. You mentioned the minor mistakes that Memphis made.
Yeah.
That's the difference maker. East Carolina's not doing that.
And they may have done that earlier in the year against lesser teams. That game against Tulane, couple of mistakes there, back and forth in a defensive battle early, a lot of field goals in that game early. I think if East Carolina played Tulane now, it'd be a different story. I really do. I think that's how this offense has continuously grown better and better as the year has gone on. They're going to need a little bit of help. They're going to need to be dependent, I guess, to say, which is so unfortunate with East Carolina because they've had such a great year. But Tulane holds the tiebreaker because of that game. North Texas is ranked higher in the analytics and in the rankings at the moment. And the tiebreaker rules are just not in their favor when it comes to Navy as well. So it's tough for me to say East Carolina, they're definitely not out of it, but it's hard for me to say that they're in it now, which should only add a little bit of fuel to the fire. Because they've played some of the better football in the American Conference recently, and yet they still might be the team on the outside looking in just because of how good this conference has been across the board, and they haven't played any of those other teams. They didn't play North Texas. They didn't play Navy. They of course didn't play South Florida, and now they've played Memphis and they've won that game too. So it's just wild to think that East Carolina could be sitting there with one conference loss, and they're sitting at home on American Conference title weekend. And I would hate for that to happen for them. I hope for their sake and for all of our sake that, like we talked about earlier, some chaos happens and we know the two best teams are in the conference title game. That's what I would hope to see. But either way, it's going to be crazy for East Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's the hope, that it's the two best teams in that final game. I think when you talk about chaos, this weekend starts some more chaos just with East Carolina's matchup.
Ooh.
UTSA in the Alamo Dome.
Yes.
And I think that I love watching East Carolina play, but I love watching UTSA in the Alamo Dome. I have no idea what will happen in this one, but I think that's to the chaos point that we just talked about.
You know what's kind of interesting about this? I want to talk about that matchup in a couple of moments because one thing is going to have to give, and I've got two stats there, and only one of them can continue. But let's talk about UTSA this past week, too.
Yeah.
They went on the road against Charlotte. They won that game 28-7. This is the first conference road win for UTSA since November 4th of 2023. It's been over 2 years since UTSA had secured a conference road win. This one wasn't super convincing either, though. UTSA, we've talked about it. They've been so inconsistent. They beat a team like Tulane, and they blow the doors off of the Green Wave in the Alamodome. But then they go on the road, and then they play kind of a subpar brand of football. And it didn't look like that early. It looked like early they were able to run the football efficiently. They were able to get the passing attack going. And even when you look at the final stats, at the end of the day, they had 500 total yards. They had 300 through the air. Will Henderson went off for 185 rushing yards and a touchdown on 19 carries. All of those things look fine, but then when you look at it in the first half offensively, it was dicey. They were up 7-0 for the majority of this football game.
Well, I think if you're UTSA, it's one of those things, you talk about getting over the hump in sports. I think this might have been a game like that, right?
Okay.
Because you haven't won a conference game on the road since, you said, November 4th, 2023. So you just need to get one. I think that this was that one, and it might not have been pretty. It might not have been what you wanted. And if you listen to what Jeff Traylor said throughout the game, he wasn't perfectly pleased, but post-game, he's excited that he gets the win. And there were some really bright spots. You talk about Will Henderson. I thought he did a great job offensively. And Owen McCown also, I thought, looked better, made some better decisions in this one. There was one instance, I think it was towards the end of the first quarter, where he threw a pick. But besides that, I think it was just one that he needed to figure out how to win. If it's ugly, that's okay. You just put yourself in the next spot to hopefully make a bowl game again this year.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're the Roadrunners or the Roadrunners fan base, you just hope that this then spirals into positivity for more wins on the road.
So I do want to say, one, Will Henderson was incredible, and he played his tail off. And for as much flack as I'm giving UTSA for the way that they performed offensively on the road, their defense did their job.
Yep.
The defense was fantastic. And I do want to give credit where credit is due. I thought UTSA played a tremendous brand of football on the defensive side. They were physical. They were fast. They were confident in their run lanes and the run fits and the way that their linebackers played downhill. I thought it was really fun to watch when you had the Tyron Milton pick at the end of the game to kind of finish it off. It was the only turnover of the game that they forced, but they were so excited about it because it felt like it was the cherry on top of a performance where they held Charlotte to under 200 yards total, $197 total on the game. They were only held to 51 yards on the ground. I don't know what it is about the road games and the offensive side of the ball, but they do say defense travels. And if the defense is going to play like that, your offense is always going to have an opportunity to win. And I thought this was a perfect example of why when we talked about all season, all off season, we talked about the defense, getting 11 new starters and having to come together and play better as they go along. We knew at some point the defense would play that brand, and now we've seen it the last couple of weeks. I think this was a hang the hat type of game for that unit, and I think it was a good thing for UTSA, like you said, to get over the hump, get one out of the way. They got a road win. It was their final road game of the year. They've got 2 home games coming up, one against Army, but the next one's against East Carolina, and that's the one I want to talk about. So I mentioned that something has to give as we take a look there as the win percentage. Only 37%. Remember, UTSA doesn't lose in the Alamodome.
That's I think that you could not look at any of the records of either team when they come to play in the Alamodome.
Yep.
And I would still maybe give a slight favor to UTSA just because of what they've been able to do at home. Yeah.
Especially in conference play. They have not lost an American Conference home game in the Jeff Traylor era there with UTSA. So you still have that on the line. But then you have ECU that doesn't lose in November under Graham Harrell. He is now 6-1 as the head coach. As Blake Harrell, I said Graham Harrell. I was just talking about offensive coordinator for ACU the other day in a game. Forgive me. Graham, you're doing a great job. Blake is the head coach at East Carolina. ECU doesn't lose in November under Blake Harrell. And they're 6-1 under him. I think this is the game where it's like, immovable object and the unstoppable force, which one is going to move?
Right.
I think this is going to be a really good game down to the wire.
I have this one circled, and I've had it circled, especially once East Carolina just started showing how we thought
Trying
they
to
could
road
play.
trip down to San Antonio?
Oh, I would love to. I'm going to be in Florida.
Dang it.
American Conference Volleyball.
Yeah,
Can't
that's
forget
fair.
about that.
That's
Champ
fair,
season. Come on now, Kyle.
Yes, yeah, my sister played volleyball. That's fine.
We know she's the athlete in the family. I think
Absolutely.
we've had this discussion on All American.
She's
before.
the athlete. I'm the brains. Let's move on to Tulsa. The Tulsa Golden Hurricane love playing against black and orange teams that are OSU. They take down Oregon State 31-14. I love it when the American beats up on other conferences. Isn't it the best?
Oh, it's so much fun. We have a whole tracker for it on our social media. It's the us versus them. You should see how many more wins we have against out-of-conference opponents. I think everybody should take it out, and shout out to our social media team for keeping track of that as well.
Thank goodness they are. Oregon State's a team that had won two of their their 3 games going into this matchup. Had won 2 of 3. They played Houston really close, who's now in the AP top 25. They played Fresno State tight. They played App State to a 1-possession game, a really good team out of the Sun Belt. So Tulsa goes in as a winless team in the American. They have not played well in conference play, and they were up 24-0 at the end of the third. They took a 31-0 lead early in the fourth quarter of this football game, came out firing. First, it was Dominic Richardson on the ground. Then it was Brody Foley at the tight end position, who I love watching play, by the way. My gosh.
So much fun to watch.
He is such a fun tight end. I love watching Foley play. And then A.J. Allen had a little counter punch there and scored a touchdown, too. It was all successful for Trey Lamb and Tulsa. Baylor Hayes, he just had to just manage the game. He didn't have to do a whole lot. He was just a bus driver in this one. 12 for 19, passing 163 yards. Just get it out to your playmakers, see what happens, and keep on going in the right direction.
I think this is a big win for Tulsa because you mentioned their struggles in conference play, and it's tough to look at that record because you see some of the games
that
where
stiff
they
arm was nasty. Sorry.
No, we can watch it. Oh, we're not going to watch it again. I was like, maybe we have a replay of it. But to your point, Dominic. You
can say it again. You can go. You can try it one more time.
I don't think I can.
Dominic.
Too many words. Was that him on the stiff arm? I didn't see. I just saw the stiff arm.
Yeah, it was him.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. He's somebody that Tulsa was really excited about when he came in as a transfer this year. He's had multiple stops in his college career, and I think you see it in the way that he runs the football. Even in the games that they're losing, he's that leader on the field. He leads by example. He's strong. He does a really good job of just finding ways to gain yardage, and I think that he showed up in this game against Oregon State as well.
And I also want to give credit to the big guys up front. They've had a tough year. The offensive line for Tulsa hasn't played their best football throughout the campaign, but they out-physicaled Oregon State at the line of scrimmage. They made it a nightmare up front. That's how the Golden Hurricane ran the ball as effectively as they did. And then on the line of scrimmage on the defensive side, the defensive line was fantastic. 3 sacks, only 69 rushing yards allowed in the game. Ray Coney was everywhere for Tulsa. 10 tackles, a sack, a tackle and a half for loss as well. This was an all-around performance, I thought, for the Tulsa defense, which is why it was a shutout into the later parts of the fourth quarter. That score, 31-14, was not indicative of how much Tulsa just kind of kicked the tail of the Beavers all the way through there at up in Tulsa. Now, You got a matchup with Tulsa and Army as they look for their first conference win of the year. They're not eligible for a bowl. They won't be to that point. But you can still end on a high note by getting the 0 taken away in conference play. What are some of the things you want to see Tulsa do better as the conference slate continues?
I think defensively, going up against an Army offense that is so unique, I want to see the way that they handle that. I also think I want to see them continue to do what they did offensively in that win against Oregon State. I think they ran the football really well, and I think that it gets lost in translation how good Baylor Hayes can be.
Yeah.
So if you combine that with the run game that you had in that last win, I think you give yourself a good chance. The biggest question mark for me is, will they be able to stop the Army offense, because it's yet another interesting offense that the defense has to prepare for.
Well, remember, I just said they controlled the line of scrimmage against Oregon State. It's going to be way harder to control the line of scrimmage against that Army team. So you got to find a way to do that again, but that should be the goal. You've now done it recently. You did it against Oklahoma State earlier in the year in a win. but you've done it recently. You can kind of step it up and at least have a goal to be attainable there. Gives Tulsa a little bit of confidence is that they did not wear down in that Oregon State game. I mean, it was 31-0. They kept their foot on the gas until they didn't, and they took their foot off the gas, kind of went conservative down the stretch. But the way that they played a complete 4 quarters of football against Oregon State, that's what it's going to take down Army if they do hope to take a conference win home in that matchup as well.
I agree.
Go for it.
No, I was just going to say I agree with you. So I cut you off before we got to our preview.
Let's get into some previews. Let's talk about it a little bit. Which game you want to start with first?
South Florida UAB.
South Florida UAB. Let's talk about it.
All right, let's do it. South Florida coming off the loss. How do they respond against UAB team that likes to snag wins against, well, South Florida's not ranked anymore, but previously ranked teams?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I mentioned South Florida earlier. It probably wasn't fair for me to say South Florida has seen teams kind of work in the wrong direction. I mean, remember, they've lost 2 of 3 now, but those 2 games are against Memphis and against Navy. So 2 of the better teams in the conference. They've played better football against UTSA. They played well. They had the big win against North Texas earlier in the year. So for me to say like they're being challenged from a psychological aspect just because of these losses, probably not fair yet. And I expect them to bounce back in a big way. They're still one of the more talented teams in the country.
I agree.
And they're going to continuously be one of the teams to be reckoned with down the stretch. They're disappointed. You know, they're down. I know that fan base had been really excited. They were ramping up to possibly go to a college football playoff, and they deserved to be in it if they were to take care of business against Navy. But that was their last hurdle, and they didn't clear it. And so now this is kind of the post-college football playoff push that you've got, and you got to keep this team together. That's the biggest thing that I think South Florida has to do. When they got to jump out quick. They got to get off to a good start. You've seen some of those games against North Texas, against UTSA, where the quick starts have helped propel them to wins. Don't allow for UAB to find any sort of momentum. It's the same thing North Texas did to UAB this past weekend. And then if you're UAB, you need to do the same. You got to force 2 or more first-half turnovers, I think, in my mind, in order to even keep yourself in the game, give your offense a couple extra opportunities, and keep Byron Brown and the South Florida offense off the field.
Yeah, I think that if South Florida can rebound, and as you said, I think start fast is the key for me. And I think once you can start fast, it can snowball in favor of you. We saw that with North Texas as well. And so I think that South Florida gives themselves a good opportunity to beat UAB if they're able to do that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of good things still in front of South Florida. Of course, they're for the most part out of the race when it comes to the American Conference title game. Craziness can happen. You never know. All these teams in front of them can lose, and then they would end up being in front of the tiebreakers again. But that would just be, you talk about chaos. That would be
There's a
bedlam.
lot of chaos.
It would be unbelievable what some of the stuff would be.
What's bigger than chaos?
That's the case.
Would be.
But I think there's still a lot to play for there for South Florida. Same can be said for Zach Kitley and Florida Atlantic. Currently at 4-6, they welcome in UConn. They have UConn and East Carolina over their final 2 games of the season to try and gain bowl eligibility. So let's take a look at common opponents here, right? Mm-hmm. UConn fell in overtime to Rice down in Houston. Florida Atlantic gets UConn at home. They actually played in Houston back in week 6 and defeated Rice, the team that beat UConn down in Houston. So I guess if we're talking about it there, this should be a game that can be winnable for Coach Kitley, Caden Veldkamp, Easton Messer, and a couple of these guys on the Florida Atlantic side of things. But you got to play a almost perfect brand of football to get there because of how really incredible the quarterbacks have been throughout the season on both sides. But UConn has been firing on all cylinders as well.
Well, they just take care of the football. We talk about Temple taking care of the football for the longest time.
UConn look at that one interception.
Well, UConn and Temple for the longest time were the 2 teams that hadn't thrown an interception in the FBS. And so I think that's something, and that's against a Florida Atlantic defense that hadn't first forced a turnover until that game against
That's a great
Tulsa.
point. Yeah, they had not had an interception all year until they beat Tulsa 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so
that's a good point.
So that's one of those things that I'm like, ooh, how's that going to play out? Also, UConn undefeated at home. And so I think that's another little nugget that just maybe comes into play. But I believe in Zach Kitley and their offense. And so
Yeah, the game's in
yeah.
Boca, so that should be fine.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I looked at the
that's
wrong
okay.
schedule.
It's okay. We're all good. UAB was playing at UConn a couple weeks ago.
Okay, yeah,
so that's
sorry.
probably UConn's been all over the
Ignore me.
American
Sorry,
Conference.
too many tabs open in my head.
Here's the other thing, though. I think you bring up a phenomenal point. I had my key to be get the balanced attack going. I want to see what Florida Atlantic can do from a ground game standpoint, because usually when they're able to run the football, they've had a little bit more success because the play action game comes into factor with Feldkamp and Easton Messer, and that RPO starts working a little bit better as well. I think I'm changing it. I'm changing my key based off of your point that you made. Let's force some turnovers, Owls.
Right.
FAU, let's get the football back. Come on now. Let's force a couple turnovers. Make UConn do something that they haven't done throughout the year, and that is turn the football over. And then all of a sudden, I think you're going to win that game.
Okay, and it's in Boca.
It is in Boca.
UConn's not as good on the road, so there we go.
It's a little bit warmer in Boca than it is up there in Connecticut at this time of year.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick which place I'd want to play in, I'd want to play in Boca.
Well, you're from up there, so you would know more than anybody to stay away from the Northeast.
Very cold at this time of the year.
Yep.
Next preview. Charlotte and Georgia.
Charlotte, I want you to play your best football you've ever played in your entire life. I really do. I wish the best for you. I hope you have a great game, and I hope you travel well. It's a nice, easy trip there to Athens, in between the hedges, where Georgia just beat Texas 35-10, and maybe they slip up a little bit. Maybe they do.
Hey, capitalize on the slip up,
yeah,
and then
maybe
we can add you to the us versus them win total.
It's a trap game. Yeah, that's all it is. All right, that does it for us. No, I'm just kidding. I do want to break down this game a little bit here, because I think Charlotte as a team is going to be challenged. Of course, this is a top 5 national championship caliber team. So to realistically think Charlotte's going to go in there and play off the wall, incredible football and come out with a win, probably a little bit overzealous. However, there are things that you can do in this game that will benefit you down the stretch. One, you got to stay healthy.
Yeah, that's been their Achilles heel
That's
the
been
whole
the problem
year,
all year long. They're so banged up.
Yep.
So stay healthy. Set yourself up for success on the Tulane side of things. I want you to get on the board early. I want you to go down against the starters of Georgia and put up points. I think that would be a win for Charlotte and the 49ers, because if you go down and you score points on a team and a defense like that across the board, I saw Georgia a couple weeks ago. They're playing better and better football, and Kirby Smart has them peaking at the right time. An extremely well-coached team. You're going to learn a lot this weekend, no matter what the final score is going to look like. I think Charlotte has some things to play for. You got to continue to push for it.
And I'm excited for them. They get to go and have that experience.
Sure.
And just like you said, maybe they can do some things, stay as healthy as you possibly can, and give it the best possible fight that you can.
I like it. There's a lot of things there with Charlotte and Georgia. Going to be a fun week across the board in the American Conference, and it might be a little more fun for some of these schools that could go bowling. How about that? There are 5 schools rather that are still looking for that 6th win. We just mentioned Florida Atlantic. They got to take down UConn and East Carolina to get there. But then you've got Rice. How about that gauntlet at the end? North Texas and South Florida to get through it. Temple saying the same thing. They're like, why do we have to play Tulane and North Texas down the stretch?
Yep.
All these teams are going to be challenged to get there, but they're right on the verge.
Hey, look, the American won the Bowl Challenge Cup a year ago, so
Yeah.
we need more teams to be bowl eligible to win that thing again. Because I think I want to keep it here in the office. It's a nice touch when you walk in the building.
It's a beautiful trophy. It's right there. It's gigantic. It's like half of Maria's height all the way through. But, yeah, I think Army feels like they could probably achieve that this week with a win over Tulsa. I know Temple is a confident football team. I really do think the Owls believe they're gonna win one, if not both, of those games.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. Like, the confidence that they have coming into games, I know that they've lost a couple down the stretch, but I think that coming off the bye week, they've had time to regroup, and so I think they'll make those 2 games interesting.
And then that UTSA team, they play both of those games at the Alamo Dome, so
they don't
you got to keep that
at the Alamo
mind.
Dome.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the schedule. Week 13. This is, of course, the Tulsa Army matchup early on that gets rolling in the right direction.
Yep.
Charlotte and Georgia, SEC Network, Saturday afternoon. Then you got South Florida and UAB. That's a fun first page. Moving on to the second page. This is where all the fun happens in my mind.
Ooh,
That East Carolina UTSA game might be my favorite matchup of the week.
I think that's the one I'm circling as well. The Temple Tulane one I'm keeping an eye on as well. But East Carolina UTSA, the Pirates in the Alamo Dome. Whew.
And it's a national primetime slot for North Texas and Rice. How about that? ESPNU at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central for, I believe it's senior day for Rice. So they're going to honor their seniors in that matchup against a North Texas team that certainly has college football playoff possibility as well. So keep an eye on that Rice game. All right, we've got a player interview coming up here in a couple of moments. We're going to get the top plays as well, and we're going to have a little bit of fun. But before we do that, we want to share our condolences for a longtime friend of ours and a colleague here at the American Conference. We're heartbroken at the loss of our friend Chuck Sullivan. And here's the statement from Tim Pernetti across the board. For 25 years, Chuck has been deeply respected leader in collegiate athletics and a remarkable husband and father. Chuck's positive impact on the industry, the American Conference, student athletes, coaches, and members of the media will always remain in our hearts. He will truly be missed and forever a part of the American Conference family. I couldn't echo Tim's sentiment there more myself. The short interactions that I've had with Chuck over the last 2 years have been nothing but positive, nothing but incredible. He's a top-notch human being. He was a top-notch professional, and I know he was very well loved across all of collegiate athletics, not just the American Conference. And we're going to miss Chuck quite a bit here on this program and in this building quite a bit.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of days here at the American Conference. I'm here because of Chuck Sullivan. Mm-hmm. So the person that called me to offer my position at the American was Chuck, and I'll remember that was about a year ago to the day. So I've had lots of interactions with him in this past year, and I am forever grateful for what he did for me because this job has quite literally changed my life. So I wouldn't be sitting here today without him, and I know that there's people in the American office who have worked with Chuck for much longer than I have. And it's been really tough just not having him here. He was the main football contact, so he watched All-American every week and really offered a lot of feedback. And he was a tremendous human being, not only at the American. He was at the Big East. He worked throughout college athletics. And I know just the last few days, the amount of outreach to people here at the conference on social media just kind of really encapsulates the kind of human being he is. Just caring, kind. Just really going to be missed. Yeah, no, and
I can hear the emotion in your voice there, and just like you said, the sentiment that's there. You don't have to look very far to see the type of impact that Chuck Sullivan had on this conference, had on collegiate athletics, on the student athletes that, of course, get to take the field or the court every week, and he had a big part in all of that. We're going to certainly miss Chuck Sullivan passing away earlier this week. We'll have more from Studio A right after this.
Todd Orlando confirmed to us earlier in the week that's exactly what they did. Inside give. There's an opening and a first down. Teska off to the races. Alex Teska to the house, and Navy on the board first.
If you score a touchdown against a nationally ranked opponent and rush for 126 yards, you get to join All-American. This is Alex Teska from Navy with us now. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate this.
We're very excited that you're here because we just mentioned some of your stats early on, but you guys beat a South Florida team ranked in the top 25. Can you just walk me through what the week of preparation was like leading up to that game?
Yeah, it was a long week of preparation. I think it was, a desperate week of preparation. Just with, how the previous 2 weeks were going, right? 2 losses. Wanted to get back on that win column. So, it was a physical week, even though, later in the season, a lot of guys are feeling pretty beat up. But, we knew what needed to be done. And I think we had a great week of practice, and it showed on the field.
I think when you take a look at the box score, if you even just watch this game, it was a complete team win, just with you, Eli Heidenreich, Horvath, everybody coming in and doing their part, and the defense as well. So for you, how were you all able to rally around each other, especially when you mentioned you've been banged up after those last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have, a lot of playmakers. And, when Blake can get the ball to all of us, I think it helps a lot. I think it's hard for defenses to, game plan against our offense just because we have so many playmakers around the field that can make plays. So I think it's just, a scheme that Coach Cronick has become very comfortable with, and he knows where to get the ball, right? So, again, that's extremely hard to defend. And I think it gives us an advantage on the offensive side.
You mentioned Coach Cronick and the way that he has created this offense. For you, you've been in it now for a couple of years. How have you adjusted to it, and what was one of the hardest parts of adjusting to it when you first got to Navy?
I think for me, being in the triple option was pretty tough. It really was. Right. I was a college bred player in high school. It's funny. I tell people I hadn't been in the 3-point stand since third grade. My dad put me at center, just to give it a try. And so I think that was, a big challenge for me coming in here. But I think, with the offense style we run now, it's half gun, half triple option. And I think it fits me a lot better. But I think it's just, it's reps. And, I think, we spend a lot of time in the off season. And that helps a lot. So I think, just getting comfortable with it in the off season, repping it, being able to spend time with the coaches and the quarterbacks to, work on meshes and pitches and route combinations, I think, has helped me a lot. But, just being confident in myself and my skill set. And then obviously, the coaches helped me out and telling me what to do.
When you take a look at the game from this past weekend, it was very back and forth, and South Florida got really close to you guys, but you were able to hold on. How were you able to do that, especially against such a good opponent?
Yeah, I just think falling back on our training. I think we can play with anybody in the country. I think we know that as a unit, as a team. And you look at the weeks leading up to this game, especially the week before the game, right? Really an underdog situation, and I think a lot of people were doubtful that we'd be able to pull out a win, except for the staff and the players on the team. Really, our only team was the only people that believed in us, honestly. And I think we knew that we had the skill set. We knew we had a good game plan going into it. It was just about execution, and not shooting ourselves in the foot. And I think we were able to do that. Like I said, I really think we can play with anybody in the country. I think everybody on our staff believes that too. So it was really just about executing and having fun out there, right? You're playing football to have fun. So it was just playing us and doing our job.
You certainly looked like you were having fun out there. Now you are on a bye this week, and then you have Memphis on that Thursday night game. How do you prepare for yet another tough opponent in the American Conference?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it, again, falls back to that preparation and execution. I think Memphis is a good team, but it's about staying healthy, right? Attacking this bye week to the best of our ability, and then it'll be a short week next week, which it will be a challenge. I think it's an obstacle that we'll have to overcome, but really it's just falling back to our game plan and our rules. And I know Coach Cronick and his staff are going to put a great game plan in for the offense, and Coach Volker with the defense likewise. So. It's a good opportunity, right? And it's all out in front of us. I think a win will, be huge for us, and we understand that. But it's just about going 1-0, right? Taking one play at a time, going down there and having some fun. So,
I love that, one play at a time. And I have one more question for you. I know you've spent a lot of time with Eli Heidenreich in your football career. So, from Pee Wee football to high school till now, correct?
Yeah, first grade we started playing together. So. I was on separate teams. We were, they did a draft back in the day for youth football, and we were always 1 and 2 picks. So never on the same team until we got to high school. But it was always fun competing against him. So
you competed against him, and now you get to compete with him. What has that been like, especially at the Naval Academy?
Yeah, it's been awesome. And he's someone, I've been able to lean on, especially coming into here, right? It's such a culture shock and a change from high school life. Right, you're going through as a plebe, you get your hair cut and you're bald and you're running around, people are yelling at you, and it's just someone I can trust and go to with problems, and I'm sure he does the same for me. I'd hope so, and really just a cool story. And I love the support we get from back home, right? I think where I come from, Mount Lebanon, it's such a small, close knit community, and we get so much support and love from family and friends back home, and just such a cool story, right? I don't think you see that a lot in college football nowadays with the NIL and the transfer portal, shenanigans going on. So, love him. He's my best friend. So it's just such a cool story, and I love telling people about it.
It certainly is a cool story, and you guys are fun to watch on the football field together. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time, and good luck the rest of the season.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Awesome job as always, and I always love hearing from the Navy midshipmen, especially coming off of a big win like they had this week. Alex Tesco was a big part of that whole scenario, and of course catching up with Maria here on this one. Now, you know what's really funny about the American Conference as a whole?
There's a lot of green teams.
There are a lot of green teams, and I see you looking down the rundown here a little bit because all of these teams have little rivalries here and there, right? Little different rivalries or geographical battles back and forth, recruiting battles. But wearing your school colors is a significant pride factor. And I think the American Conference as a whole has some incredible colors.
Ooh,
the
yes.
color scheme across the board is incredible. But what happens when we flip the colors of specific opponents from one side to the other? I think I'm going to hate this exercise.
I think I'm gonna hate it too, but I'm gonna love it at the same time.
But we're gonna love it at the same time. So we're gonna flip some of the color schemes back and forth between each of the schools that are gonna play this week, and we're gonna decide which one looks better. So you want to start us off? Which one? Let's see which one we've got first.
All right, let's take a look quick. Ooh, okay. So we're deciding if Tulsa looks better in Army's colors or Army looks better in Tulsa's colors. Ooh.
Okay, so Tulsa looks better.
Tulsa looks better in Army's colors. Yep, 100%.
That red star is not.
No.
And the golden side from both sides, because you got the Black Knights and the Golden Hurricane, but the gold that's there is not that far off. So the helmet almost looks the exact same.
The helmet looks the same, but yeah,
the Tulsa uniform,
the Tulsa black and gold.
That's not even close.
Yep.
Congrats, Tulsa. I guess. I guess that's a win for both sides.
It's a win.
Maybe. All right, next one. Oh, Georgia and Charlotte. This is going to be gross. It's just going to look like the Packers G. That's all it's going to look like.
I know.
Yeah, see,
it literally looks
the
like
Packers G, except it's got that like.
I'm going with Charlotte on this one. Us first, them.
I think the all black would actually be pretty sweet with
That'd be
Charlotte.
A sick, But just putting that out there. Equipment team at Charlotte. Maybe next year.
The G also looks like it could be like a high school. Where it's like some high school team, like Granbury High School. I don't know if that's even real.
Watch it be a real high school.
It may be, and they use that exact color scheme. I wonder if there's a G high school in Charlotte that could use that. Flip
I don't
the
know.
colors
Maybe they can.
All right, moving on. One more or a couple more.
Ooh, these are kind of similar already.
Yeah, this one may not look bad one way or the other.
Let's see.
UConn and FAU. Florida Atlantic.
Oh, no, definitely the owl. That husky looks like it's going to like murder me in my sleep.
Yeah, that's a nightmare husky.
Oh, absolutely not.
Ew.
No, can we just take that off? We're going with the owls. I'm actually
It looks like
scared.
rice.
I don't
It's just the rice color scheme.
Yeah, just give me the FAU one. Can we please move on? I'm like scared. That's going to haunt me
Okay,
tonight.
so these color schemes are similar to South Florida and UAB.
Let's see it.
Let's flip them.
Ooh, this is interesting. I think I like the South Florida with a little bit of red.
I'm all for the UAB one here.
Yeah, okay.
All for it. And here's what's kind of interesting. The hockey fans will understand what I'm talking about here. The Bulls logo there looks like a uniform. I'm not going to name the nickname that the uniform had. The jersey that the Dallas Stars wore in like a one-off alternate uniform back in the day, back in like the early 2000s, but it was a joke on the internet. Even back then, it was a joke on the internet. It still is a joke on the internet. I'm not going to call it by the nickname, but just know a cow was also involved in the nickname of that uniform that was used by the Dallas Stars hockey team. That's what that logo looks like and reminds me of.
Okay.
And that's why I'm going with UAB. I'm going with them pretty
You're a
pretty
Texas
easily
native.
here.
I'm taking a look at the Pittsburgh Penguins. I wouldn't have known at that point in the early 2000s.
Different thought process.
Oh, it's going to be so weird.
This is going to be weird.
So weird. Okay.
These two teams playing in the Alamo Dome this weekend. We talked about it. It's going to be big time.
Ooh.
Okay.
I
don't hate either one of these.
I actually don't either. I think I like the pirate and the UTSA colors though better.
I think I'm with you.
Yeah, like I don't dislike the Roadrunner and
No.
the EC, but I do think I like the pirate with the UTSA.
I am going to say we talked about the G looking like a high school team. I think this also looks like a high school team with the UTSA Roadrunner.
Yeah.
You throw like a bird out there with a different color scheme, and this is what high school teams do when they create their logos year in and year out. They open a new high school. They've got 12 high schools in a city area code now, and they got to find some way to put a logo on it. Let's slap a college logo there and just change the colors up a little bit, and that's how you created it. I'm running all these logos for you. You'll see it now as you continue looking at high school teams. It's all over the country.
You'll never look at them the same again.
Yep. All right, moving on. This one's also going to be weird.
So weird.
Yep. Tulane and Temple. Oh, this is going to be a fun matchup as well. We talked about that a little bit too. Temple with the Tulane colors.
You think so?
That looks like, that's the Crimson Tide right there.
No,
that's Alabama on the left. It's
no,
Crimson Tide.
No, that's Heat Miser.
Who?
Heat Miser.
What are you talking about?
From the Christmas movies? You know, like the claymation movies, Heat Miser and Snow Miser? No. You don't know Heat Miser?
I don't know misers
Oh my goodness.
at all.
Okay. Well, all right. When we get closer to Christmas, we are going to show some clips of the Heat Miser episode.
But that's what that is. That's
Heat Miser.
It's a Crimson Tide, is what it. That's
it's
what it
Heat
turns
Miser.
into.
I'm going with Heat Miser on this one.
Give me Temple with the Tulane colors. Oh,
it's gonna be weird because they're both this like same colors.
Yeah, they're just gonna flip the same colors. What are you
no,
talking
no,
about?
like sorry, like they're single colors.
Oh yeah, on these logos specifically.
I don't like either of them.
I don't like I'm out on either one.
I don't like either.
I'll take the North Texas logo just because I think I like that logo more. And I'm a big fan of navy blue. I'm wearing navy blue right now.
Right.
So I'll just take North Texas logo with the rice colors. But those are both gross.
I'm just not picking either one.
You're refusing to pick?
Yeah, I'm pleading the fifth on this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
I don't like either of them.
Go mean green. That's what it is, right? That's all you got to put together, and it's green.
You're
how
not
can they
biased
be the
at
mean
all.
green? Well, no, that's their saying. Is how can you say go mean green whenever it's a blue eagle? You just can't do it. Anyway, let's get into some top plays. Start us off here, Maria. What do we got on top plays this week?
This game, we talked about it already on the show, and the ending we have to highlight. In play number 5, Caden Hauser to Peyton Mangrum. Minutes winding down on the clock, but still the game-winning touchdown for the East Carolina Pirates.
I'm still shocked that this is number 5 on the list. That's an incredible play in a crunch time moment. Overall, these next 4 better be unbelievable plays if this is going to be number 5. Mr. Mangum, do your work. Get it done. He had 2 catches the entire game, and this was one of them. Made it happen in the end zone. Game winner in front of 35,000 plus. Woo. Go Pirates on that regard. Very nicely done. Let's go back to the football field. How about this? Charlotte taking care of it on the return. They only had 1 touchdown in the game. Derek Ely takes that touchdown and puts it in his own hands. He's going to take it all the way down the right sideline. Derek Ely makes it happen. 21-7 at that point. That was one way that they wanted to try and wake things up. They got it done there.
I just was so impressed with Derek Ely because coming into this game, my analyst who had him multiple times was like, he's going to break free for one in this game. He called it. There it was. He dodged multiple players all the way to the house.
It's a phenomenal blocking scheme up in front as well. Easy stuff there for Derek Ely and company. All right, take us to number 3.
All right, number 3. We can't not have Navy in the top plays after they beat South Florida. Blake Horvath to who else but Eli Heidenreich. One-handed grab. He also stays on his feet for this. Continues running. He doesn't get the touchdown, but he gets pretty close. Oh, my goodness. He just does things like this on a regular basis. This is
just another day for Eli Heidenreich and what he brings to this Navy offense. Oh, that was so sweet. And the still shot that they put on social media in the middle of the game. Mwah. Hanging in the Louvre is what they put on the social
I love
post.
The caption.
And it wouldn't get stolen because it would be guarded by our armed forces too. So yeah, hang it in the Louvre. Go ahead and put it out there. Make it happen. Let's hang it up and put a gold frame around it because Navy gets it done. Only reason that this was not number 1 in my mind is because he didn't score, but they did score a couple plays later. So who really wins here? Navy wins. That's who wins.
Navy wins. They beat the Bulls.
All right, going to number 2. How about this? FIU men's soccer. Didn't see it there, but it was a great save. A game-saving save. That is Nigel Van Haveren The save in overtime. This is a golden goal scenario,
Yep.
and that kept it on the line.
Well, this whole game was awesome. It ended up going to PKs, 12 frames of PKs in the cold. Me and our other coworker here at the American Corey Bowl, and we're freezing during this game. But Nigel Van Haveren stops that, and then FIU goes on to win and beat
Wow.
Charlotte to head to the championship game.
That save wins you a championship. So that's why it's number 2. Let's go to number 1. I have a feeling we're staying on the soccer pitch.
We are. We've talked to this person last week. You didn't see it right at the beginning, but we'll see it again right here. Jasmine Kessler, the goalkeeper. Remember we talked to her last week?
Uh-huh.
We'll watch it again. There she is. She scores a goal.
Over the top of everybody.
Everybody.
On the free kick?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
In an NCAA tournament game, too.
Heck yeah.
That's incredible.
You love to see it.
Jasmine Kessler getting the job done. Look at that shot. Oh, I mentioned it earlier. I said that these next 4 plays will have to be incredible if it's going to beat Peyton Mangum in that game-winning touchdown for ECU. I'm okay with these.
You're okay with that?
I'm
wow.
okay with the top 4.
I'm actually, that makes me feel better because normally you disagree
I
on
do
play picking.
quite a bit, but this
It
is
was
not
hard.
one of those cases.
There were a lot of good plays this week.
A lot of great plays, and Kessler very deserving of the number 1 spot. That's going to do it for us here on All-American. Appreciate you hanging in. I've got a little sinus infection that I'm trying to get over. I know I sound a little bit different, but my energy and my excitement for the American Conference is still here. I promise it's a big week ahead. We're going to learn a lot more about what's going to happen in the college football playoff and, of course, for the American Conference title game that's coming up around the corner, too. Things are about to get crazy. For Maria Trivelpiece, I'm Kyle Youmans. Go ahead and like, subscribe, share, follow us on all the social media accounts. We'll be back next week with more All-American.